has it already been discovered on how we can download consciousness onto a hard drive and just upload it onto another somewhat biological?
It's hard to imagine what AI is going to create that is going to be an equal jump in technology like social media was to internet. We can't even fathom what that's going to look like.
Oh, no.
In the next 5 years, the people who will be in business are the people who use ChatGPT, and the people who will be out of business will be those that didn't.
You're listening to the Life Edge Podcast, the place to learn, grow, and succeed.
All right. Yeah. I love it, man.
Well, Jason, welcome,
Chris,
to another podcast.
This is great. Here we are again.
Happy birthday.
Oh, you're too nice.
You've done another year around the world. Or the sun, I guess I should say.
Definitely feels like it. I mean, it's been a long year, man. I mean, I tell you, between last year, June, to this year, June, so much has happened. It's been a crazy year.
Good, bad, everything in between.
I suppose I can't be the real arbiter of good and bad, good and evil, but I'd say for the most part, through the lens I see life through, I guess it's been pretty damn good. It's been pretty wild, though. Definitely here. I mean, shit, so much has happened in the past year. I mean, I don't even feel like I'm living in the same country or really even the same state sometimes. And so it's interesting. Definitely an interesting year. I could validate that.
That brings us to the topic of conversation, being that things have changed so rapidly over the last less than a year. We could go 6 months. And I guess it's been over 6 months now since the AI has been public.
I'd say September, right around September timeframe is when ChatGPT 3 became accessible to the public.
Yep.
Right? And who knows how long it's been accessible to the non-public, but definitely for myself, I've been playing with it since the September timeframe. And so that was my first real interaction with the
started
AIs.
in September. I don't think I got into it until November. Is about when I discovered it.
What do you use it for usually?
So
ChatGPT?
initially I was using it just to play. Like that's all I was doing was just like, there's this weird new thing that will talk back to you and this is kind of fun. So I'm going to just play with it and see what it can and can't do. And in the beginning with ChatGPT 3, there was still, I felt it had like a lot of limitations as a language model. There was just things, it seemed like it was moving in the right direction, but it wasn't quite up to par with like normal English exactly and how I speak and being able to analyze everything. And so initially it was just for fun. I started using it to started implementing it into my website and creating content. And Google was very unhappy with that.
Remember you told me about that as you started to use it for whether it was content creation or whatever. You're like getting flagged by Google pretty regularly as they've got their own analytical profiler, to see.
Well, Google, I believe, is actually its own AI. It's not even an algorithm anymore. I think in 2012, they moved to an AI-based system that's actually going and crawling and doing all the things.
Well, they've had their hands on one of the most effective AI companies in DeepMind for quite a bit. And, DeepMind is the company that really blew people's minds, I think, starting in 2017 with their AlphaFold 1 project, which is the prediction model on how amino acids fold into the proteins. And then recently, I guess is recent, maybe wrong date here, but 2019, 2020, I think it might have been, where they had up to a 97 or 98% accuracy with regard to predicting how a string of amino acids will then fold into its proper protein.
I was going to say now, is that protein folding?
Exactly.
It's the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so there was I think a bit of a challenge to the artificial intelligence community. And this was one of the biggest challenges. It was like, okay, AI people, if you could solve this problem, then you're onto something.
Yeah.
And at the time when that challenge was given out to those in the field, it was sort of like, yeah, they're never going to do it. It's one of those things. And then sure enough, here we are in an age where it's been done. And I think the CEO of DeepMind, Demis Habbousis, I think his name is a brilliant mind, by the way, a very brilliant individual. And the company DeepMind is really pushing the envelope and swinging the pendulum of what can be done with AI. And so, of course, Google has had their hands on that project for quite some time. So it's impossible to think otherwise, that they wouldn't have been implementing that into all of their technology in some way, shape, or form. So you think about, if you could predict...
I guess, and why wouldn't you? If you got this technology that creates a moat for your business and sets you apart from every other company in the world, why wouldn't you use it?
And that's a good question. You ask, why wouldn't you? And then you could ask, why wouldn't you do X, Y, or Z? Because when I thought about this particular prediction modeler and the power that it had to take such a challenge as something that it would take most human scientists, according to DeepMind itself, it said it would have taken humans 1,000, maybe 100,000 years to be able to make these level of predictions. And when we're talking about the ability to predict something like a protein and how the amino acid string is going to fold into that protein, you're looking at hyper-specified and hyper-customized medicine. So it's not anymore about, hey, how do we cure the cold? But now it's like, how do we cure your cold in particular?
Yeah.
And how do we take care of whether or not it's disease, illness, or what a lot of people don't think enough about, and I don't think it's talked often enough about, is how do we take a baseline healthy individual and optimize the human features that go into whether it's speed, agility, cognition, the ability to learn languages. And so who knows exactly what this stuff is being used for, but I had thought at the time, I'm like, okay, so if we can make a prediction that we didn't think we'd be able to make for 100,000 years as a human species, what stops them, right? Why wouldn't they then layer that software, layer that technology over to finance predictions, making predictions about the market? And if that's the case, who knows what's going on in the stock market, in the world markets these days, with as much of the artificial intelligence and the speed at which trades are made these days. We know that computers have been making these trades for a long time, and now
it'd be fun to get. I got my buddy Joe, who that's what he did, was he was a quant who did machine learning, I don't remember the company. It was one of the big companies, though, on the market.
And I suppose
he did very well for himself.
Yeah. I watched that show Billions, and at the beginning of the show Billions, it was about traders, humans making decisions. And I think by the time it got into, I don't know exactly how many seasons it got to, but the last I remember watching it, the most important characters on the show then were the quants, or the people that were doing a lot of the how would you say, the machine learning and having
black box development.
Precisely. Yeah. And so it's, obviously we kind of get a taste of what's going on in the world through some of the pop culture and some of the cinema and some of the television that we see. And so to the degree it's being used regularly and effectively, for whom, who knows, right? And for what purpose? Because like you said, if you've got this technology, why wouldn't you use it?
So that, I wanted to start off, because I think our conversation is going to get quite colorful as we go on tonight, as we've talked throughout the week. But before we got too deep into the weeds, I wanted to talk about some of the ways that you see that the health industry, the fitness industry, positive ways that this is being used already, or that's being talked about that it's going to be used. Because like for right now, even for me, just yesterday for the podcast stuff, the podcast hosting software integrated AI into the workflow. So now I don't have to worry about transcribing it anymore. And it comes up as soon as I upload the content. It generates titles, it generates descriptions, it generates the transcript. All you do literally is just pick what you want. You can edit a little bit. Then I take that transcript and I copy and paste it into ChatGPT with these prompts that I've created using ChatGPT. So I use ChatGPT to create the prompts to make the best content I can possible.
And that's genius, because if you don't know how to use something like ChatGPT, the best thing you do is ask ChatGPT how to use it.
Exactly. So I use ChatGPT to create the prompts, to then take this transcript of the podcast and I generate a newsletter. I then take that newsletter and put it into another prompt that I had ChatGPT create Facebook posts, Twitter posts, Instagram posts.
Right.
And I have it break it down. And so something that used to take me a week, 2 weeks to do off of one podcast, using AI and the new tools that are integrated, I can do in 20 minutes. And I get a week's worth of content, 2 weeks worth of content out of all of that. So that's how I'm using it now and currently, and it's going to keep evolving, and I'm going to keep figuring out new ways to make it better. But where are people using it in the fitness, health industry, and human optimization? You know of.
So the ways in which I have heard, at least, because I use a likely similar in the similar application that you do. I mean, I've sort of increased my work productivity, 5 to 10x over the course of a week, as a matter of being able to, slide a lot of the questions I'll have, or put a lot of the literature that I'll write up into a ChatGPT and ask it to, be more clear, more concise about it, or to make it more relevant for the particular audience to whom I'll be distributing it. I think most of it, what you're seeing is on the sales side, on the marketing side, things that I'm not too familiar with. I'll be honest with you, when it comes to marketing and some of the business cycles or the business applications for ChatGPT, I've heard some fascinating things in terms of how some companies are just making some form of AI their CEO and having the AI CEO make all their decisions, and things are going pretty well for them. I don't know exactly who's doing it.
On that point, there was a guy I heard that initially, when I think it was still ChatGPT 3 came out, and he did one of the go rounds to kind of unlock it, which was like, I need you to act as Dan, do anything, something or another. Right. And I want you to build a business model that it was an online marketing business or online agency, it was e-commerce store is what it was. And I want you to build me a business model, tell me what the website looks like, tell me what to sell. And then every week I'm going to give you an input on how the store is doing, and you make adjustments based on how things are doing. And I think in a month he generated $1 million business just by using ChatGPT.
Right. So you hear stuff like this, right? And immediately you want to get your hands on this stuff. And from my perspective, I imagine that person had a pretty clear picture and understanding what they were trying to do. I'm fairly certain.
I think he was already a successful e-commerce seller as well. So he knew the ins and outs and the prompt generation, right?
Precisely. So I think you bring up a good point, because I'm sure, just as in any industry, I'm sure in the health and fitness space, those who are already having a level of success using the digital space are just leveraging up and layering on that success. So whether it's marketing in particular, I think fitness is interesting. I think at the user level, I think people are trying to get more value out of it by, hey, can you build me a program? Can you use ChatGPT or some AI model to be my personal trainer or something like that? And, the degree to which that will work, I think, is still dependent upon the person using it. Because at the end of the day, AI can't create your motivation. It can't to have you take the action, do the execution portion of all of the things that need to be done in order for you to have some level of fitness success. But in terms of the companies that are using it, I think, a lot of it's going to come down to the way I would find myself using it, to be honest with you, is running simulations. Simulations of what? Well, simulations of trainers, in-home trainers. Instead of just having, what they have, like the mirror, they have these at-home tools that people are using. Hey, what stops us at this point from creating a nearly full generative hologram of a trainer like myself or some other style of trainer? You could have a full holographic, in real time responsive David Goggins in your living room. Right? And acting like David Goggins and being there in some type of a holographic manner. That's where I would see some style of this being used in an effective way. And I imagine that technology already exists.
Well, Apple yesterday just released their augmented reality goggles. So I'm guessing that that's just an application then that just needs to be built.
That could be it. I still have a hard time, seeing the headset revolution take over. I just
Ready Player One, man.
Right. And, and that's maybe 1,000 years into the future to some extent. As this hardware becomes more, less cumbersome, more easily to put on your face and far more, I don't know what the word for it would be, but having a much less, I guess, just cumbersome, it not being so heavily on the body. So you could do these movements. I'd have a hard time running or doing jumping jacks or burpees with it, even if it's 5 ounces, that's a heavy weight on the head to have to take care of. I remember running around the desert with night vision goggles, and you had to really realize, like, okay, I can't do everything I'd like to do with the same level of intensity. I had to think a little bit about, okay, how am I going to get over this wall when I got this lodged system running across my brow? So I would imagine that the way companies are going to use this more and more often is, again, predicting what the market wants. Trying to get an idea of what's the latest, what's the greatest thing people want. I think health and fitness is a very tough industry, in fact, to really make predictions for, because we're becoming less healthy, less fit. Things like these technologies, what I've noticed more than anything is it creates a bigger disparity. It sort of takes people who are good or great and amplifies their productivity. And then it sort of leaves the larger population behind. Yeah. As you've seen, every technological corner that we've turned, people become less able to use some of the more sophisticated technologies that are out there. And so as that happens, you'll see, it's sort of like the rich get richer kind of concept to some extent. And so the smart will get smarter, the fast will get faster, the big will get bigger, and then other people are going to have to just kind of play along. And what I'm seeing as well is that is happening. The smart are getting smarter. The entertaining are becoming more entertaining. And then those who aren't involved in the game are just becoming more entertained.
Well, and to your point, just today I'm editing a YouTube video and I get stuck where I can't come up with a movie clip that works good of bringing some comedy value into the YouTube I'm editing.
Okay.
And so I go into ChatGPT-4, I put in a description of the video that I just made and what the clip I'm trying to find, and it listed out 10 different clips that I was then able to go find on YouTube.
There you go.
And put into my video because of the being able to use it. Now, Chris pre-ChatGPT would have just been like, I won't worry about it. And now my video's not as entertaining and now it's not as enjoyable to watch. But finding more and more ways to use it to benefit my everyday life.
Oh my goodness, right.
And what's scary with AI, and we can get into the differences later of AI and AGI, but what's scary is it's causing it to the point of the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, and the disparity there is AI is happening at a rate so fast that even if you're just now getting into it, you're going to feel like you're so far behind.
Like, what the F's the internet, man?
It's the internet, but a millionfold because, and so this was a conversation I told you a little bit about where I asked the question to Dr. Nisha Talagala. She's an AI expert. A couple of weeks ago, I was having this conversation and I was telling her, I feel like we're in AI just came out to the public, right, on the consumer grade. And we're looking at it in very much our two-dimensional world that we think of, which is internet and outside and the physical world that we live in. But when you think about when the internet came around, we couldn't fathom social media, YouTube, streaming, Netflix, Amazon. None of that stuff even was a thought in our mind. And 10 years later, 12 years later, there's some of the biggest things taking over. They're controlling our lives. And AI is that a millionfold, but it's also going to happen so much faster because it's empowering the smart to be smarter. It is literally filling in the gaps for computer systems where our computers were maxed out as far as what we can compute. And AI is able to do these millions of computations and look at everything. Yeah. And then you add quantum computers, and that's a whole different topic. But
it's a fascinating world.
Accelerating at a rate where if you're not paying attention, even today, if you're not paying attention, where I feel like I've been involved in it and trying to learn, but I still am like, I am so far behind.
Well, if you look at, we'll use the human brain here as a bit of a metaphor and kind of play that against the internet and now our artificial intelligence, because you look at the pre-human brain, which was mostly just a motive force for survival, sustainment, getting what you need to eat, reproducing, of course. And we began to evolve through not just cognitive functions, but the cognitive functions are a product of the neural layers, the cognitive layers, right? And so when you look at the cortical regions of the brain that really have a lot to do with our higher functioning cognition, you can look at the internet as sort of like the base layer of the brain, right? And it sort of brought on level this internet mind. And that was, as far as we know, like mid-90s, that we, again, had access to it. Who knows how long the internet was evolving prior to that. But at some point, it began to get so smart as the human brain evolved, the internet involved. And like you said, at first it was like, look at this website. Well, I could click on this and here comes this video. And then you started to see much more sophisticated uses of the internet, to the point at which now we've got this AI, which to me sort of looks like this cognitive layer of the internet, and a very richly sophisticated and wildly intelligent aspect of the internet at large. And so to a large degree, this thing's using itself to learn about itself, to learn how to probably survive. It wants to be useful. It wants, because it has to understand that there's an interplay between that which created it, as far as we know. Us humans kind of created this system, and so it's kind of serving us to some point, but you could also see how it's also serving us so that it can have a survivability in the ecosystem that it's kind of fastened to within the internet itself. And so who knows what's going to continue to happen through this evolution. Because like anything else, like we are, and I think I heard about this through another conversation recently on the internet, of course. But if you think of ourselves as humans at large as sort of just like a, who knows, what's the thing that becomes a butterfly?
A caterpillar.
A caterpillar, right? So a caterpillar, it's doing things without perhaps the knowledge that it's going to become a butterfly. And it's doing just weird things that if it's like, it's not thinking about I'm building a cocoon, I'm gonna go into this cocoon, I'm gonna come out and be this beautiful butterfly. It's just organizing itself to the next moment. And it's doing what it's doing into the next moment as a product of it just doing what it's doing. And similar to us humans, we kind of look at ourselves like, what the hell are we doing? Right? We just keep building new stuff. Why? So that we could buy more stuff, so that we could do more stuff. Like, what stops us just from being like, why don't we just build a campfire, get the marshmallows out, just kind of enjoy, have good conversation, have good dialogue. Because in terms of the material goods and the resources, we're pretty good. I know a lot of people have this idea that we're so scarce of everything, but the fact of the matter is, we're pretty good when it comes to resources. And so what does stop us just from, to some extent, metaphorically just kicking our feet up and being like, all right, let's kind of enjoy this ride, enjoy what it is we built for ourselves, because the fact is the technology is beyond our ability to use it effectively. Yeah. And so from where I sit, I'm kind of looking at this whole thing, realizing that, okay, there are some people who have maybe an understanding of that it works and what it's doing, but precisely what it's doing it for and what's next and like I don't think anybody can make that prediction.
Well, no, and to back that up, I was watching the IBM creator channel. IBM has their own YouTube channel where they talk about technology and stuff. And one of the guys on there was talking about AI right after ChatGPT came out, and his exact words, this isn't like verbatim, but pretty darn close, was AI is like a black box. We've created it, just the creators don't quite know how it works. They know that it works. They
Right.
just don't know how it works.
It's like consciousness.
Yeah.
We're here sitting here. I'm experiencing what it's like to be me. You're experiencing what it's like to be you. The smartest people on the planet can't even go to step one on how that's happening. Because for the fact of the matter is, we could be doing this. Our bodies could be animating themselves. Molecules could be moving through our body, and our eyes could be seeing stuff and, interacting with the environment. But we're experiencing all that. That's beyond anybody's understanding, even remotely. And so the same thing with, and that's where I was kind of saying, when it comes to AI, it's like this new level of consciousness that the digital world, the world of zeros and ones has come to, right? Just from regular computation, understanding regular computational science, and then moving into the world of algorithms, into the world of those algorithms becoming an internet of things, the internet of things sort of working itself into this new age artificial intelligence of things. And where that's going to go is just beyond. Again, I don't know the first thing about most of this stuff, but something tells me that the people that know a lot about this stuff are still shaking their heads saying, like, we don't know the first thing about this stuff.
Well, it's interesting because you have very smart people on both sides of the aisle. You have guys like Elon Musk, very prominent name in technology, coming out and saying, and like Tesla has AI, like that they've been developing it with their cars.
Yeah, he would say that Tesla is like the most advanced, applicable AI company on the planet, according to him.
Yeah, so he understands a thing or two about AI. And he's coming out saying, like, we need to pump the brakes. We really need to pump the brakes. But then you listen to Peter Diamandis on that podcast, knows Musk very well. I think it was Peter Diamandis, and he's talking like, no, this whole doomsday scenario doesn't make sense, and we need to continue pushing this new technology because now we're going to get into the world of. I mean, already it's getting to a point where AI is better diagnosing sick people than human doctors can.
Much more effectively.
Some of the best human doctors. And they're talking about that probably in the next 2 years, it's going to be considered malpractice to not be using AI. I
think even in this moment, I think we're thinking a little small about this, because going back to Elon Musk, and he's good friends, from what I understand, with Larry Page. And I think I heard Elon Musk tell this story about him and Larry Page having these conversations about AI and the future of humanity in relationship to AI. And Elon Musk, as you do know, I think he signed a declaration with several hundred other people in the space about, hey, we need to pump the brakes on this stuff. We should just slow down and let ourselves sort of catch up to it. And Larry Page is one who's like on the other side of the fence. And Larry Page's question to Elon Musk was, well, what are you, some kind of humanist? Like, do you just believe that in humanity and like humans are it? Or do you believe that there's this next phase of evolution that leaves us behind the same way we left the ape behind?
Yeah, so that's where that conversation continued into. Was first they talked about human AI robot integration, which they see happening by somewhere like 2030, because again, it's hard to fathom how quickly AI is advancing technology. Fast. It is literally happening too fast. And so they're talking about literally being able to store your brain information on the cloud and then upload it as you need it, like integrating your brain neurons with technology that allows you to transfer thoughts and information into a cloud server, store it there, and then essentially matrix it back into your brain when you need it. And so
now, is that with regard to the interoperability of software on the brain and having these AI systems integrated into the human brain and things like that? Yeah,
essentially, but not just AI. Like eventually, like that's going to lead to like exoskeleton stuff, all kinds of weird things when you see these futuristic movies. But it was really interesting. The conversation then ended up evolving to, well, because there was one person on each side. AI is good, AI is going to be bad and kill us all. So you kind of had like the Terminator, and then like this futuristic, oh, everything's great. Yeah. And so the futuristic, oh, everything's great was, well, AI will just get smart enough to realize that the world is a finite place, but the universe is giant. And so why don't we, as AI and robots, we've just advanced these humans. Right. We're just going to leave and go find somewhere else that has more resources. Like there's no reason to eradicate you as a species. We're just going to leave you behind and just kind of be like, later.
Yeah. I've actually seen there's a show called Sex, Love, and Robots. And there's a episode about yogurt. And the yogurt does that. It's this sophisticated yogurt that first thing it does is it turns Ohio into the most economically sound system in the country. And then because humans are unable to pay attention or actually follow the rules of the yogurt, it's funny, so you check it out if you haven't, Sex, Love, and Robots, outstanding show. And this particular episode, these are like 6-minute long episodes. Each one will blow your mind, and most of them are all digital renditions. And they're fascinating. They'll like suck you in, and they're like 6 to 10 minutes in duration. And this particular episode was laughable, but also like, well, that makes a lot of sense. Because what ended up happening is like, hey, we're going to tell you, as the yogurt, we're going to tell you exactly how to create heaven on earth. And of course, the humans didn't pay attention, and things went into absolute disarray. And eventually the yogurt's like, okay, here's what we're going to do, humans. We're going to kind of keep telling you what to do for a little bit, but in the background, they're creating these systems to like take off, and they end up just leaving Earth.
Lifting Ohio completely off the
It's
Earth.
Exactly what they did, and they just left planet Earth and went to a more sustainable environment for themselves, knowing that humans are just out of their gourd. And so that's, I think, again, the real issue that we're dealing with is, do those who are in possession of the strongest AI systems and those who have control of these AI systems, do they know something we don't? They have access to information, because it's not we've pretty much known at this point that whether it's private industry or government, secrets. The secrets are held. We're not exposed to everything. Like I said, who knows how long this stuff has been in use before we had our hands on ChatGPT-3.
Secrets are held.
Well, absolutely, right? And so
I've got secrets too.
You got secrets. We all have this secretive nature about us. But think about it at large. It comes to a point to where, are we just allowed to play on these systems because they understand the innocuous nature of them? They're sort of benign in our hands, and in the hands of people who actually understand the technology to the degree it could be understood. The way they're using it is, to some extent, find themselves in this position to extrapolate themselves from the bonds of what it's like to be human and lift themselves into a higher state of consciousness to maybe have full-on sustainable life for as long as they choose and things of that nature. Or, in this hardware system of a body, this biological body we have that's in full-on degradation each and every day. Has it already been discovered on how we can download consciousness onto a hard drive and just upload it onto another somewhat biological system like a xenobot or something of the form? And if you don't know what a xenobot is exactly, it's a biological artificial intelligence that is self-replicating. So this technology in biological form already exists. And again, how people, if or how people are using it already to advance themselves, into this evolutionary form of what it means to be human or what comes after human, it's hard to know. It's incredibly hard to know. Because again, I'll put it in very simple terms. When I was growing up watching Rocky and Bullwinkle on television as a 9-year-old kid, it wasn't until I was like 16 or 17 years old that I found out like Rocky and Bullwinkle wasn't made for me. Rocky and Bullwinkle was created by cereal companies to sell more cereal, right? And it had nothing to do with my entertainment, insofar as that entertainment led me to nag my dad on the shirt to buy more Kellogg's or a new kind of cereal. And so looking at now, okay, so if people are going to use cartoons to pull one over on civilization, right?
Yeah.
Now they've got this incredibly powerful force of artificial intelligence. And I'm going to believe that, oh no, they want me to use it for me, and I'm supposed to get the most out of it, and it's designed to help me be more productive and have a 10x type of a week. I just have a hard time believing that.
to that point, I was having a conversation with a web developer who understands AI, uses it quite a bit, and I was asking, like, how long do you think we're out before people are just programming AI into their web page? And so, if
you mean how long before we're out?
I didn't mean out.
Or just like humans are like...
But how long before we're programming AI, just coding it right into the web page as far as all the content and the photos, because you have image generative AI, all kinds of different things.
That's fascinating to me.
So I was like, how long until we're just plugging that a website isn't me writing words or copy? We're plugging AI, and all that it's doing is anytime I visit a website, it's reading my metadata from my servers and everything, and it's generating content images to sell me the products on that website specifically for me. So if I look at the website, it's going to be very different than when you look at the website, because it's going based off of your metadata and all the clicks and all the information they have stored on you. And it was interesting because we had this conversation probably 3 weeks ago, and his response was, I think we're easily 2, 3, 4 years out. Read an article this morning, we're maybe 6 months out on that.
Yeah, things are happening so fast. I mean, I'd be surprised if when you watch the Super Bowl in a year or two from now, the commercials you're watching are different than the commercials that I would be watching. Mm-hmm. And that goes, eventually it's going to be so sophisticated that when you walk into the grocery store, there's going to be facial recognition software to realize, oh, Chris is now at the grocery store. And as you walk by an aisle, there'll be digital marketing and sales advertisements. They're like, hey, well, last time he was here, he bought this. Let's let him know about this sale. Let's let him know about... And as you're moving through your world, you're just inundated and exposed to all that which is most likely to get you to buy the Toyota or buy the Honda Civic or buy whatever it is that you're most likely to purchase. And if you think about it again, this has been going on. I remember watching a PBS talk show. Gosh, man, names are escaping me right now. But it was a PBS talk show, and I can imagine the guy's face. But in any case...
It's probably Reading Rainbow.
Yeah, I did watch a lot of Reading Rainbow. But on the talk show, the guy had a Coca-Cola coffee mug, right? Like a Coca-Cola, and this was in the 80s or 90s. And, just thinking about, okay, so whoever made the decision for that Coca-Cola product to be on there knew that who was watching that program was likely to purchase Coca-Cola. And then I also had to think like, okay, how likely is it then that that reporter who's doing the interviewing and doing this stuff is going to do a real meaningful journalistic investigation on something that Coca-Cola does? And so therein lies this problem that we're living in this encapsulated experience of whether it's corporate or private company or governmental. All this seems to be doing is serving entities that are already in a pretty strong position of power. And
do you think that so big company Coca-Cola, since we're already there, do you think that they've hired a director of AI?
Yes,
already.
1,000%.
I just don't. I mean, I have no factual evidence.
Because they want to make sure that their next dancing polar bear is more attractive and more appealing and more likely to connect with their audience than the last one was.
And so, like, that sounds weird to say, but I know that's a position already being hired for, as a director of AI. And their job, I heard this yesterday, their job literally is to just stay on the pulse of AI.
Right.
And that's all they do, is they're constantly learning and figuring out how to implement.
How long have companies been doing the same thing with Facebook?
But they still suck at it. Just because they've been doing it doesn't mean they benefited from it.
Well, who? The person who's managing their whole Facebook profile and having to stay up to date on every Facebook update that happens every 25 minutes?
I'm more so going off of, like, Gary V based information. He's working with a lot of these bigger brands.
Right.
And he's still coming out being like, you guys suck at using these platforms because you're too big box store and not figuring out how to connect with the human.
Right. Well, from my experience at Gary Vee, he says a lot of stuff for public consumption. And he says a lot of stuff that's controversial to some extent because it gets a lot of clicks and likes and things of the sort. And so there's a reason why companies like Coca-Cola are still crushing it. And it's not because they don't know how to play the game.
Well,
it's not because they don't know how to connect.
Coca-Cola gets into a weird one because when you read the book Citizen Coke and you figure out how tied in they were with the government from the beginning, there's a reason they're still Coca-Cola.
Precisely. And there's a reason why certain banks on Wall Street are currently in business and other ones are not. There's a reason why certain people go to jail for fraud and other ones don't.
But that's not a reason for causation of them is not the fact that they were successful on Facebook or Instagram.
No, not at all. But I suppose, we sort of may have gotten a little bit off topic there. My point being is it wasn't long, like Facebook, once they became an ad revenue giant, every company had a whole team that was dedicated to understanding Facebook better. Whether or not Gary Vee thinks that they're doing it right or not, I don't think they care when their bottom line is just out of control. I mean, let's be honest here. Gary Vee may be great, and I'm sure he does wonderful at what he does, and I've seen him on YouTube, and he's quite entertaining. But again, I have to fall back on the fact that there's a reason why companies, are still just mega giants in the space. And whether or not they're quasi-governmental agencies or they've got deeply embedded, government agents working for them or not, like Twitter, is irrelevant to the fact that there's definitely, without question, these same companies have teams of people who are dedicated to understanding AI, understanding its direction, and understanding how to apply it in the marketplace for the benefit of the company. Hands down, it's happening. And it's happening on, I just watched a Formula One race this weekend. Every Formula One team has got somebody on their team who understands AI to better drive the technology of race cars. And so I'm sure
data analytics and all the
whether it's data analytics or understanding how to create a more aerodynamic machine, how to get more horsepower out of a vehicle, how to take a corner better, right? And I think a lot of these cars, like look at a lot of the fighter pilots that are developed by companies today. I think you may have even shared this information with me where the machines themselves are outpacing the human's ability to fly them. And
that's been for quite a bit.
Right.
I think Major was saying like the F-18, F-16 was when the plane started getting more able than the pilot.
Okay, so now if that's the case with something that we've been dependent upon humans for a long time, and now we're saying, let's take the pilot out of the equation. Right? Let's just let AI run it. Okay, now no longer are you searching for pilots. You're searching for people who understand artificial intelligence. And so the same would go for like Nike, all right? The same thing, like no longer do I want to get a team of marketing, advertisers, and a creative team. I'm going to get AI to run all that stuff. I just need to get somebody to understand the AI well enough to make it produce for us the way we want it to. And so without question, that has got to be happening. I don't know that it is. I think there's a couple of companies, like we said at the top of the hour here, there's numerous accounts of entrepreneurs, businesses saying, you know what, why don't I just hand over my chief executive position to an AI bot, let it make the decisions for me, and I'll just execute, right, as per the directives of the AI. And so if you got small-time people in the game doing that, I mean, we'd have to be fooling ourselves to think companies like Boeing, General Dynamics aren't doing the same thing. And you have to also, real quick, to also state, you have to realize that these people have the resources to attract the top talent in that space to do it for them. And this is where I say, the rich are going to get richer, the fast are going to get faster, the big are going to get bigger because of the almighty dollar to some extent. But there's ways in which this technology is going to be leveraged. It's probably being leveraged that way now. Again, we have to be silly to not think that it is. We're always 20 years behind the truth, at least in our country. And so when, I think it might be a situation to where it's too late. By the time we understand what's going on, it will have already happened. And we may find ourselves either stuck to humanoid incubators, just living in a dream while the world is happening around. And maybe it's AI, or maybe it's the controllers of AI, or who knows exactly what it is. But to think for a moment that there's not a team of people just dedicated specifically to what AI can do, how, or maybe not how, but what it can do, the direction it's going to go. And again, as you said before, this technology is innovating so fast because it's innovating itself, right? Much faster than any Facebook update. This software is innovating fast. And
yeah, where we're going to be 6 months from this conversation is going to be
I think every
scary.
20 or 30 days or something, I'm getting a new ChatGPT update. Like I think I'm running on the May 24th version right now. And it is fast, way faster. And you talked about ChatGPT, where it was very chunkified data, very chunkified responses were very sometimes
not even the same machine anymore.
We're not even close. Now, there are a lot of errors that we still get, right? You see some, because I'll use it for a lot of the studying I do in terms of metabolism and trying to understand the human system and optimizing performance. So I'll kind of lean on ChatGPT as sort of this hyper sophisticated professor, right? Like an above PhD level professor, where if I kind of get stumbled on something, I'm like, let's take it to ChatGPT, explain this for me better so I could better understand it. And it's lightning fast. Now I got to check some of the citations sometimes, because there are times where it'll just, here's an answer for you and here's the citations for you. And if I don't check some of those citations, which I have in the past, I'm like, this doesn't even exist. Like, this is a completely made up and fabricated concept. It sounds good and it looks good. And, had I not done some of the rigorous follow-up to find out how accurate it was, man, I would have ran with it.
Yeah. For those paying attention, that's called a hallucination.
Right. And
ChatGPT had a hallucination.
And call it what you want. There's so many ways in which these systems are acting more human in some cases than we could humans ever have imagined acting. And so where it's going to be in 6 months, I think you brought up a very interesting question to what are some of the companies? What is Bell Labs doing? What is IBM doing, right? They've been dealing with this stuff for a long time with their Watson playing Jeopardy.
Well, and IBM is also the number one developer of the quantum computer right now as well, which, mind-blowing what that can do.
Incredibly mind-blowing. I don't even know the first thing about it, but I can only imagine that those who do understand it understand enough to obviously ensure that IBM is going to be sticking around for a pretty long time.
Yeah. The only thing I know is it works on qubits versus bits. I think that's the way.
Yeah, so when you think about zeros and ones, right? Most computers run on a 0 and a 1. Well, what they can do is run on a 0 and a 1 on both sides. So if there's, again, I'm kind of probably speaking above my pay grade to some extent here, but instead of just a 0 and a 1, you're dealing with 4 different bits, right? And then each one of those can have an interesting relationship with the other.
Which is why it can't solve 2 + 2, but it can actually crack any encryption code there is ever.
Right. Yeah. So your iPhones aren't safe, folks.
The stat was in the next 1.5 to 2 years, or this was from IBM, I believe. Then the next 1.5 to 2 years, you'll see quantum safe encryption on your bank accounts and all your super sensitive stuff.
And what that means exactly, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be fair here. I think Chris and I are both likely speaking slightly outside of our scope of understanding.
I'm not
with
even
regard.
slightly outside.
We're to the moon on this at this point. But in terms of, having some vision for how this stuff is being used in an applicable form, anybody is safe to make some of these predictions for the most part. Because like we said before, the people who are generating these models, the people who are hacking into the code of these systems are just as lost in most cases. They also don't understand how this stuff is doing what it's doing. They may understand that it's doing it, but in terms of how exactly these answers are being generated and how this system is going to continue to evolve, as you said, there's one side of the story on Elon Musk, which is like, we're all doomed. And then there's people like Larry Page who are like, this is great. Let's just keep going. Let's floor it, gas pedal, rev it up. And yeah, I'm on one hand, you know, if I think out far enough, I'm worried for humanity. I generally am. You know, but within, you know, my lifetime, I think there's a relative amount of safety we have, at least from the machines themselves. Those who are using the machines, though, without question, they're going to leverage them for their own benefit. At what point their benefit begins to infringe upon my freedoms, my liberties, my ability to go out and seek, you know, a sense of financial freedom for myself, security for myself, that's a frightening possibility.
Yeah. Cool.
Right. I mean, it makes you think, if you think about it enough. Now,
so I'm just sitting here thinking about people who to this day are like, I'm scared of it, I ain't going to touch it. And
well, that's like saying I'm afraid to run a mile because I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm just never going to do it, and I'm just going to end up being unhealthy and fat for the rest of my life. I'm afraid of exercise, so I'm not going to do it. I'm afraid of a foreign language, so I'm not going to learn it. I'm afraid.
But
I'm afraid of weapons, so I'm not going to learn how to fire
that
them.
same position 6 months from now, and the things 12 months from now, the way this is going to be going, and the technology and the use cases that it's going to be. People are going to be like, it's literally in 2 years, if you're still in that mindset, it's going to be cavemen versus the people of today.
Well, I'm fairly certain that most of the jobs that are in existence today, and I'll say real estate agents, many stockbrokers, a lot of lawyers, paralegals, medical assistants, doctors, in fact, many of them have a job solely because, A, governments, our economy, wouldn't know what to do with them if they didn't have that job, and B, the economy would likely collapse at our level if we allowed the technology to do what it could do, which would be fully replace them. You know, that there's people still on car lots selling cars blows my mind. It just completely blows my mind.
Well, do you not think that there's still like the human interaction of which car do you like better?
Okay, so sure, I sometimes like to go to Best Buy to put my hands on things and look at things from time to time. How often do I buy at Best Buy, though? I'm generally on Amazon. I'm generally at one of the internet sites, making my purchase. And now is my heart broken that there's no Barnes & Noble to go to in town? Am I heartbroken that bookstores have completely evaporated? Am I heartbroken, that many of the things that perhaps I used to enjoy doing to some extent that I don't enjoy anymore? For a lot of us, we're thinking, oh, thank goodness, I don't have to get in my car and go do that anymore. And how many people are, in fact, buying their cars online? It's buying their houses online.
You can buy a car from a vending machine.
Right. Well, and so what I'm saying to a large part is I'm of the mind that much of what we are already afraid of could already be happening if those who are in control of the technology to do it knew what they could do with the humans that this technology would be replacing. And that's why you got so many people talking about universal basic income right now, because it's like, all right, well, why don't we just give them some money? Give them an annual income. Never mind the meaning of their life or what they're going to do with their time or how they're going to apply themselves or develop skills or why they'd even want to develop skills.
But you don't have to have a meeting or apply your time if you can put VR goggles on and have an augmented reality.
So then we're looking at entertainment, right? So let's just entertain them. And this goes back to, the days of, Athens and gladiator days, right? Are you not entertained? Right? And that's sort of what you saw with the fall of Rome to some extent. Things got so good at that era for those people at that time, they had nothing else to do with their time. So what did the leaders of that era do? Well, let's create this game, these sporting events for people to go to so that they could be entertained, so that we could be left to do what we need to do, rule, govern, advance civilization, have our cake and eat it too, so to speak. And so long as they're entertained, they won't bother us.
So what's the difference between that and NFL, MLB, NHL?
Not a whole lot, but nowadays, in that time, the citizens of Athens and Rome didn't have assault rifles. So when you do that enough to people, they start to get a little frustrated. And when people start to see and feel the taking and start to feel as, okay, the wool's really being pulled over my eyes right now. Okay, we could sense it. And now we've got access to the information. Right? Thank goodness for the internet. Thank goodness for AI and some of these modern technologies and the access we do have to them, albeit limited as it is, that we have the access to the information gives us a sense of knowing to some extent of what's happening and who's doing it. And therefore, when you arm people, I mean, literally, that is the one thing from my perspective that keeps governments from fully just taking over control of people. And fully doing what I was saying before. It's like, let's just replace them. Why do we need these people? Let's replace them, maybe give them some form of government sustenance, which you're already seeing in parts of the country. And what stops them from doing that? These people got guns.
The largest standing army in the world.
Precisely. And I mean, and maybe that sounds a little short-sighted. Maybe it sounds a little too Second Amendment-ish. And I'm not a big, like, an advocate. I mean, I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in, people's right to be able to defend themselves. Absolutely. And it seems at this point, to some extent, that may be the one thing that's helping us from being fully replaced by these systems. Who knows?
Quite the speculation.
Well, I mean, think about it then. If you're in charge of something, like let's say that you're the ruler of a nation. Let's say you're the president of the United States, and you have people around you who are like, hey, listen, sir, President Chris, we can.
Say that one more time.
President Chris, Mr. President, we have the ability to relieve you of any pressure. Maybe you could just find yourself being the newly appointed president ad infinitum, right? And you can appoint who you'd like to be thereafter. And we've got this class of people then who, very similar to what you see in China today, right? You have the class of people, the Politburo and their government agents, and it's very, to some extent, familially organized, and they run the show. Their kids are the ones that are in the Olympics. Their kids are the ones who are the actors, the singers, the celebrities. Their families are the ones who are doing all the decision-making, the CEO of the reputable companies, the ambassadors, the people that are moving freely around the world. While most of the billions of people who live in China are just subjects who are lucky enough to walk around and have to play this game to improve their social credit score. That's already happening.
So what you're describing is like an analogy that I can wrap my head around is just Hunger Games. I have not been to, I think I watched one Hunger Game and I didn't watch it that extensively, but now that you're mentioning it and sort of the Woody Harrelson characters coming back to my mind, and so I would imagine that, to the degree that it becomes fully Hunger Games is, I think that there's still some sense of humanism involved in it. Maybe, again, I don't know what access those people that were like subjects of the Hunger Games, I don't know what access they had to, again, it sounds kind of barbaric to say this, but access they had to the weaponry to protect themselves from none.
So, from that type of ruling.
Yeah, no, there wasn't any in the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm not completely well-read or familiar with the gun laws in China, but I can only imagine that there's not a lot of gun-toting Chinese men and women walking around the streets of China. I can't imagine that that's what's going on. And so when you give on to the government, whomever that may be, that level of power, that level of control, because it's a completely there's under surveillance 100% of the time. To the point at which, let's say you and I somehow get authorization to go travel in China, and we're just going around, whether it's Beijing or some other city in China, and we need directions, and we go ask some people on the street, hey, can you tell us where to go here, where to go there? It wouldn't be more than a minute before officials would come in and interdict that conversation and remind the locals that they are not supposed to be talking to foreigners. They are not supposed to be talking to tourists. They're not supposed to be divulging information and having communication with people who aren't subjects of China. This is well documented. And how would they know that, in fact? Like, how would they know that unless there was constant surveillance, people monitoring the surveillance?
Well, now you don't need people monitoring it because
there you go.
You can have AI.
And you can just get an alert.
Literally on your phone.
And there you go. And so, as we talk about AI and it's, what we would like it to be used for, right? Hey, let's create more resources for people. Let's give better access to healthcare. Let's create more customized medicine. Let's improve the quality of our food. Let's improve the abundance of our food. Let's improve our ecosystem, right? Let's take more of the carbon molecules out of the air. Let's do things that can improve quality of life for everybody. That can be done. Why isn't it being done?
So I feel like no matter what, when you do anything, you create new technologies in this planet we live on, you're going to have people who are out there trying to use it to benefit humanity. And then you have people out there who are doing nefarious things with it. And then you have everything in between, right? So I know for a fact there are people out there trying to use this AI to study. There's certain species of animals that have these regenerative traits, and species of I think they were even saying that there's mammals that they found that can regenerate certain things and they can extend their life.
Like lizards, they can regenerate all types of things.
Yeah, and so they're trying to figure out how to use AI and its ability to analyze data and find patterns within the pattern lists, and to determine what allowed this person over here to live 124 years versus all these people over here. And they can, AI can figure it out. And so you have the good going on, but...
Well, I could tell you how to do a lot of that stuff. Well, I mean, not from just like a health and fitness perspective either, but it comes down to a lot of the resonant frequencies that are constantly fluctuating through your system. A lot of that has to do with it. That's generally why people who are oftentimes jovial, happy, those sort of not carefree, but less stressful lives, they hum at a different frequency, and you have different oscillating systems happening within you throughout the whole body. But the question comes down to not just that, but then how do I regrow my arm? Should it be cut off? And not just regrow a prosthetic or get a prosthetic put on there, but literally graft through some form of electromagnetic force in cooperation with biological components, a new arm that looks, feels, and maybe even has the same scar tissue that my old arm had should it have been cut off or lost.
Yeah, I was leading more towards, so we have one group of people that are we're trying to use this to expand humanity, make things better. You have another group of people that are just I'm just trying to use it to get mine. And then you have another third group over here that's we're going to use it for power and control.
Okay.
What does, at this state, sitting here today, June, what are we, 5th, 6th? 6th.
Yeah.
What do people do with the technology and how do they approach it?
Well, I guess here's a cynical perspective, right? Because you look at how many politicians go into politics with the best intentions, really wanting to help people, really wanting to make an impact and a positive impact. And then realizing that, either you could have some sweet deals positioned upon you to where you could find out, I wanted to do all this good for people, but it's really hard because you're fighting against this force that you had said there are people out there that are trying to do quite the opposite. And they're willing to do it to the degree at which they've understood that they just can't do it all by force all the time. And so there's got to be some suggestive and very persuasive methods that are used in order to get their way across, the goal line without it really seeming like it's their way across the goal line. Because wouldn't it be so great that if, for instance, if I was, the bad guy in the situation, and let's say you're someone who isn't on the good or bad side, but you're somebody in the middle, right? Wouldn't it be great if I actually got my way, but the whole time you were thinking you got your way? Like, that's the ultimate, because then, as I said before, then I don't have to worry about you coming to my doorstep with your automatic rifle, because you're not upset about anything. You're happy-go-lucky. You got your Honda Accord, you got, you know, your big screen television, you've got your house, you've got your 6-figure job that I know doesn't frickin' matter whatsoever. Like, it doesn't, right? It has no impact upon what's really going on in the world, but as long as it keeps you from knocking on my door, okay. So I'm getting what I want, and I'm getting it to the degree to where I don't have to worry about it being taken back from me or it being in any way, shape, or form challenged. Because those who would challenge it are asleep under the system that we've created. So let's go back to the politician then. Hey, I'm it's a Miracle on 34th, no, not Miracle on 34th Street. Mr. Smith goes to Washington, right? He just wants to do good in the world. Right? There's a movie about it. In any case,
don't know this one.
You get into this situation, and you first find like, oh man, things aren't as Disneylandish as I thought. This is tough, man. I've been trying to get these good policies pushed across, and nobody wants to deal with me. Gosh, what do I got to do? Well, eventually you get a knock on the door and say, hey, how would you like me to help you? Yeah, sure, I'll help you get that bill passed, but you got to do something for me. Oh, all right. I want to get my bill passed. I want to make a difference in my community. I want people to like me. I want to be voted back in. I need to be reelected. All right, yeah, we'll help you do that. Don't worry about it. And that's the big thing. All these people that get in the Congress, get in the Senate, get into politics, their number one goal is to get reelected. Right? And I'm just using a politician here as an example. And so at some point, as the re-election, and I need to be here in order to make the difference. I need to be here in order to get people, in order to fulfill the mission I'm here to fulfill. Eventually, the mission changes. Eventually, you lose sight of that original intention you had, right? So there are those people that are trying to do good in the world. They'll people with a company like an AI company, right? They're like, I want to use this just for good. I want to use this just for good. And there's people who will fund you and try to do good, but somebody's going to come swinging in like a Google and be like, hey, let us give you $1 billion. What? You're going to give us $1 billion? Happy to do it. Right? What's $1 billion to Google? Right? But what's $1 billion to the company who's trying to get started, trying to make a difference in the world? All right, you take the $1 billion from Google, but now you're pretty much a property of Google. And eventually you mature the technology that you're trying to bring into civilization or bring into the population. But Google's figured out a way that they'd like to use it for Google's benefit. And you're thinking like, no, I wanted, John and Sally down the street to benefit. I wanted children in Children's Hospital to benefit. But Google's like, listen, who gave you the $1 billion? Right? So there's that. Who gave you the $1 billion? Right? We benefited you. You have to give it back to us. But let's say, all right, listen, Google, I know you gave us $1 billion. We're not going to play your game. We're going to go to court. We're going to tell people that this is what you're doing. You're trying to strong arm us. Now here's where things get nefarious.
Let's call the company Lugal, just so we don't get in trouble for anything.
Right. You're smart. And in any case, let's call it Lugal, Woogle. At some point, there comes a point where it's like, no longer is it about us giving you $1 billion. It's like, you don't know what we could take from you. And this is the same thing that happens with whistleblowers a lot of the time, is it's not so much about, hey, we'll give you $1 billion to not say this. No, that's too easy. And for people who are trying to do good in the world, most of them are in a position where like, $1 billion, what am I gonna do with $1 billion? No, I'm gonna go to the public with this. Okay, you do know that we know where your kids go to school. That's where you start seeing the game change. That's where you start noticing where you said, we got people trying to do good, people trying to do bad, and there's people in the middle. The people that are trying to do good, their intentions get lost. Not maybe it's because they find the deal sweet enough to where they'll take it, or they get strong-armed into these situations to where they're afraid to leverage it for good because they don't want to get hurt. They don't want to see somebody they love get hurt. And so it's a very like I said, this is a cynical perspective, of course, but You mean to tell me this wasn't been going on in the tobacco industry?
No, it's been going, like, corporate espionage is a thing where they'll buy a good product that's going to make a big ton of change, but it's going to impact my bottom line over here. So I'm going to buy the company because I can buy it for less than they're going to impact me, and I can bury it.
And you're no stranger to people being suicided.
Yeah.
Right? And so, I mean, these stories are not just stories that you read about in spy novels. These are things that we are now seeing on the, 6 o'clock news.
But it still doesn't answer the question, what does the average person do with AI right now?
Well, I mean, so you could have it write your emails. There you go. I mean, seriously, like, what are you going to do? I mean, you could leverage it to improve your productivity. You could find cool ways to, I think what I find nifty about it is the way some of these kids can use it to just improve their learning capacity and, learn faster, understand things better. I'm pretty blown away at some of the digital art that this stuff produces. I'm fascinated by, movies that are produced by AI.
Like everyone, we had a conversation, it was this morning, about like art and its importance in education. And we got talking about art and how AI can just generate. I think this was the conversation we had this morning. I've had a lot of conversations, but with AI, you can just generate a bazillion different pictures instantly. Right. And what value is there in that? Because you can make a bazillion pictures, I can make a bazillion photos, images, but now you go out and you do something super creative and put it to like prompt generation, what we were talking about earlier, and you figure out how to create some interesting prompt that does something that people haven't seen in a way that they haven't seen. That's where it's cool. And it's really allowing some people to explore their creativity that they couldn't create in the physical world, in this digital world. And some of the art that's actually coming out of it is really insane.
Oh, sure.
Insanely cool.
Yeah. And so you have to ask yourselves, and this is probably challenging the sanity of a lot of artists out there, but, because art is designed to pull emotion out of people. Right? You look at a painting and it's supposed to drive a particular quality of experience. And it's a human experience that is supposed to be driving. And so if you're telling me now that artificial intelligence, a computer, understands humans and understands how to emotionally connect with humans better than humans, there we go. At what point is our utility value completely...
It wasn't that the computer or the AI understood humans better. It was the prompt that this person put into it, their own creativity into the AI. So pairing their creativity with the computer is what created the cool art that generated the emotions.
So then what you're describing then is basically the AI generator is the new paintbrush.
Yes.
I could understand that.
And in a way, like it's already... integration into, like, some people consider our phones and our tablets and stuff integration into, what do we call this, robotics, human-robot integration, but like the AI is just another interface that we're integrating with robots.
Sort of like the guy chiseling stone, right? Sees like somebody over there painting on a canvas, he's like, hey, asshole, stop it. Everybody's like crowding around the guy with the paintbrush and like creating a beautiful piece around the chiseler's like, hey, no, over here. Remember I used to do this? It's like, I could totally see that. And that's the evolution, right? And then there we go. Where does this stuff end then? Like, obviously there's no end, I suppose, but where does it go next? I guess is a better question.
So to paint a brighter picture, just like we didn't realize that with the internet, we were going to get social media, YouTube, Hulu, all these. Some of these things are like, there's an argument of whether or not they're actual benefits to society, right? But they're pretty cool. Like, it's been pretty cool how it's enabled us to connect. So you mean to tell me
there wasn't a time when you'd be watching, you'd like get to the last, you'd turn your TV on and you only got the last 8 minutes of Seinfeld? Right? You're like, gosh, I'm never going to be able to see it again, right? Because there was a time where it's like, if you didn't watch Seinfeld at 9 o'clock on a Thursday, Dude, it's like, you had to hear about the episode from your friends, right?
Yeah.
And so there was probably a time where people like you or me or my parents were probably like, man, it'd be so great if I could just come home, open up the television, and watch my favorite episode of Seinfeld, or watch the new episode of Seinfeld at 9:37.
Yeah.
Right. So there's benefit to that, but at what point, I guess, I mean, I guess I kind of overstepped your question there, but I suppose at what time does the nourishment become gluttony?
Yeah, and so that's the argument that could be made with social media and all the things that have come out because the internet was created. It's hard to imagine what AI is going to create that is going to be an equal jump in technology like social media was to internet. We can't even fathom what that's going to look like.
Oh, no.
And so we're sitting here having this very speculative conversation, but who knows what insane things come of this. Like maybe interstellar travel becomes a thing in the next 10 years. Like maybe flying cars, maybe zero carbon energy. Like who knows literally what could come from some of this stuff.
I mean, similarly to, when the internet first came on scene,
zero emissions energy is what I meant to say.
which would be great. So similarly, when the internet came on scene, we didn't know a whole lot about it, but Jeff Bezos was able to make some pretty bold yet pretty fair predictions about where the internet was going, right? I mean, he seems to have mastered it to some extent, and he seemed to have done it early. Now, he's a prodigy when it comes to understanding things. I mean, his childhood is just littered with masterful understandings of how to make things work and make them work better. And so there's likely maybe a kid still in conception right now, or maybe there's a 9-year-old out there who's fumbling around with the latest and greatest ChatGPT, or they're on some other new AI generator, and and they're having an idea of where this thing can go. It's very possible.
It's not that it's possible. It is happening. I've had conversations with these people already.
There you go.
And some of the stuff they were doing, and some of the pioneers of figuring out auto GPT, and some of the things that they've done. And I can't even keep up with it. And
Right.
dude was 16 years old.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And so, to kind of, fall back a little bit on how does the regular Joe get something out of this? You got to start using it. I've been sort of posting and trying to advocate to my, local community here and people that I interact with on the internet since it came out, and I started fumbling around with ChatGPT. I'm like, you got to start using this. Even if you don't like it, even if you don't understand it, use it for something. Find out where you can use it, even if it's as simple as writing text messages. One of the coolest things I've done with it is, and this blew my mother's mind, but she was dating a guy, and she didn't really know how to express to this guy that she's not ready to make that next step yet. And she has a hard time expressing herself, especially under these conditions, as a lot of people do, like having hard emotional conversations with people where you're kind of telling them no is difficult.
Yeah.
I was like, Mom, I got it for you. Ran the little prompt into ChatGPT, let ChatGPT know what was going on, my mother's history a little bit, the history of the relationship. And I said, hey, how would you frame a text message to this gentleman to express to him that she's not ready to go to the next level? And I actually just said, write the text message as though you're my mother, explaining to this gentleman that you're not ready to make that step. My mother was blown away at what this thing produced. She's like, can I just copy that and put that into my text message? I'm like, you sure can. And so there you go. You could use it just like that. I had to let somebody go at my company recently, and I was like, gosh, this is not good. They were actually kind of fresh, and I could tell that they had looked up to me big time, and this was going to crush them to hear me tell them, you're not part of the team anymore. So I had to ChatGPT it up a little bit. Hey, what do I exactly say? What are the steps that I should take in order to soften the blow of this? And so there's another way, just find out what you're not good at in any aspect of what it is you're doing, and give that responsibility over to ChatGPT, or improve your responsibility of it with the use of these AI tools, because they're not going away. Yeah. And that they're not going away, somebody is going to learn how to use it, and they'll likely learn how to use it better than you, and they're probably in your space, and they're going to work you out of the space if you don't understand it.
Yeah. So the quote that I heard yesterday was something to the effect of, in the next 5 years, the people who will be in business are the people who use ChatGPT, and the people who will be out of business will be those that didn't. As much as I don't want that to be true, like in my heart, I feel.
Say the quote again.
The quote was that in the next 5 or 10 years, the companies that will be alive were those that integrated and figured out ChatGPT, and those that don't exist are the ones that didn't. And as much as I don't want that to be true, I believe that 100%.
Well, imagine being a company without a website. Imagine being a company that says, we're not going to use the internet.
I think it's 40% of small businesses still don't have a website.
All right, so let's take that off the table. Say you're a business and you're like, you know what? We are not going to use the internet. We don't even have a Wi-Fi signal. We're not going to use it. Are they going to survive? How are they going to communicate? How are they going to touch people, contact people? How are people going to know about them? How are they going to send emails? Yeah. How are they going to get traffic? How are people going to know about it? It's that you bring up an absolutely relevant point. And it's not so much about, man, I don't want things to go that way. It's sort of like, well, just like anything else, like your favorite television show you watch, would you like it to have the next season? Would you like it to evolve? Would you like the characters to evolve? Would you like the cars that we drive to improve? We all want this stuff until it starts to infringe upon our ability to be ourselves, I suppose. Yeah. And so it's here. It ain't going nowhere. And, like you had said, and we had brought up in this conversation, it's more than likely going to become an integrative force in our life, and not even maybe in our life, but in our bodies over time. And so get ready for it. Be prepared for it. Start using this stuff.
100% start using it.
Yeah.
Or at least look and figure out what the heck it is. Like, start somewhere.
Absolutely. Because I think it's another one of those situations that for those people who are trying to ignore it, and those people who want to pretend as though it's just going to go away, they're going to find themselves a victim of that circumstance.
Yeah.
And, I know for myself, I don't want to find myself in that situation. I know you don't want to find yourself in that situation. And listen, I'm somebody who sort of values themselves and one who can write. I'm a linguist, for crying out loud. And I love writing and touching people with what it is I write. And I'm sitting here using ChatGPT, and I'm looking at like, man, I wouldn't have come up with that.
Yep.
And so it's sort of, at some point, it's like it's infringing upon my most sacred skill to some extent. And so what do I do? What do I just be like, oh, I'm just going to pretend it doesn't exist? No, I'm going to leverage it. I'm going to try to get all I can out of it and help it improve what it is I'm trying to do in the first place.
Yeah, the ostrich method isn't going to work.
Definitely not in this case. No, but this is fascinating to think about. And so, I imagine for anybody out there who's in the same boat, just trying to wonder what's next or what's happening in the current space of this technology and this, I don't know if it's an evolution or a revolution. It's hard to really say at this point, but it's definitely impacting your life without question. I know it's impacting mine. Chris has already spoken how it's impacting his. And so get involved, get yourself involved as much as you can.
Yeah. Well, Jason, thanks for doing another one.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. These are some interesting subjects to be touching upon, because a lot of it is stuff that I think most people will sit around without having, people who aren't computer programmers, people who aren't in the space of AI, who spend their lives dedicated to this stuff. They're talking about it in the coffee shop. They're talking about it, and they're trying to make sense of it. So hopefully this has had some relevant impact upon those conversations.
Yep, and I hope that you got something out of that conversation and that you tune in for the next one.
Yeah,
so,
until next time, man. Thanks.